Awesome. I'm Daniel. I'm the Toronto branch organizer of Socialist Action. I'm also a QP 3904 member, speaking unofficially, of course, today. And I am also revitalizing Science for the People in Canada, and that's something we want to do. Personally, I am someone displaced from NATO aggression. I come from Bosnia, and before I had a solid memory in my skull, my family was in Canada. The nationalism that was stoked in Yugoslavia came from decades of neoliberalization led by the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank. Because when people don't have money and they don't have access to social services, people turn to other areas of comfort and of alliance. And in Yugoslavia, that multinational experiment with 6, 7, 8 nationalities, people turned on each other. And America, just like today, was there to pray and to react against it, because they did not care about people like my family. They maybe spoke about us in the media to justify why they bombed Yugoslavia, the first ever NATO invasion that didn't go through the UN. They spoke of ethics and morality. They didn't talk about international law. And people did not fight against this. They bought the idea that somehow the American military and the Canadian military, with their bombs and jets, could be a vehicle for good in the world. We're here to say no, it cannot.
Yes.
It cannot. We say Canada out of NATO. We say NATO out of Eastern Europe.
Woo!
Nothing good comes from war. As Eugene Debs said about the Great War, World War I, a bayonet is a weapon with a worker at both ends. The working class does not find any salvation in war. The only benefit will go to the corporations selling the bombs, to the corporations that have access to new markets, when you repeal any semblance of national control over resources. And how do we know this is true? How do we know that we shouldn't trust America and Canada now on the question of Ukraine? Well, let's see where they decided to intervene in the past, and let's look where they haven't intervened. Venezuela wants to control its own oil, we'll coup you. Cuba wants to control its own economy and not live under the heel of a dictator, they get sanctioned for 60 years.
Shame.
But Saudi Arabia, well, they're an ally. So who cares what they do to Yemen, to the women within their own country, and to children?
Shame.
They're an ally, of course. All right, and then Palestine. We've talked about Palestine. And there's a rally today for Palestine. Do the Palestinians not have a just argument for the right to return home and for their own democracy, to not to live under apartheid? Yet Canada is still one of the staunchest advocates of Israeli apartheid and genocide.
Shame.
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 It's clear Canada does not have a cohesive foreign policy based on peace. It's a foreign policy based on global domination and on neoliberalism above all else. It might be tempting to say that you support any sort of struggle for self-determination. It might be hard to argue against that, to be labeled as someone who's undemocratic. There's nothing democratic about a bomb being dropped on people. There are other ways out of any of these conflicts. We've spent time talking today about the reasonable demands for sovereignty and control over your own culture and language and own land. And we need to support that. There are ways out of war. And we need to always highlight those alternatives. So let's talk a little bit more about who isn't here today. Where is the labor movement?
Yes.
Where are the unions?
Yes.
At Queen's Park right now, there are restaurant workers gathering to demand paid sick days. How many paid sick days do you think we can afford if we didn't spend $77 billion on new fighter jets?
Yeah.
Could we afford clean drinking water in Indigenous communities, you think?
Yeah.
With $77 billion? Free post-secondary tuition, pharmacare, social housing? Those are the constructive solutions workers need and oppressed people need. War destroys, and the only people that benefit are the people that will never have to fight on the front lines.
That's right.
So we always need to remember the history behind imperial aggression as the highest stage of capitalism. Because when the profits that they exploit from workers here and the resources here aren't enough, they will go over there. And they'll create any excuse to justify that war. And we need to say no. Canada out of NATO, NATO out of Eastern Europe, no more military alliances, no more war, for a peaceful world where workers and oppressed people unite and take care of each other. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Well, thanks very much, Daniel.